morning, the Muslim Brotherhood continuing its protests, and an estimated 37% of registered voters weighing in on the referendum this week. I asked Joel Beinin, Middle East historian and professor at Stanford University, whether a yes vote really reflects the will of the Egyptian people.
I think it does. First of all, I'm not sure about the 37% figure because the final official results will only be announced tomorrow, and the regime has been claiming something closer to 50-55%. That also may not be true. But in any case, it's been very clear for the last several months that the army in general and General Sisi in particular are wildly popular. This is not the result of any kind of democratic process. There was a military coup in July that ousted a democratically elected president. But nonetheless, according to all opinion polls, the army and General Sisi are popular, and consequently, this constitution, which is viewed as a referendum on the coup, also undoubtedly has the support of the majority of the people of Egypt.
Well, do you think that the process was legitimate to begin with? Because there have been reports from the opposition that they were quashed, that they weren't allowed to protest. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
That is all true. People were arrested for campaigning for a no vote. People who were giving out leaflets calling for a no vote were arrested. Consequently, the Muslim Brothers decided to boycott the elections. Another party headed by Abdulmonem Abdel Fattah, who split from the Muslim Brothers, the Strong Egypt Party, also boycotted the elections. They were originally calling for a no vote as well. So there's no question that this was not exactly a democratic procedure. On the other hand, as I said before, I'm fairly certain that the result reflects the wishes of the majority of the Egyptian people. That's a paradox.
Do you anticipate that we will see maybe a larger turnout for the parliamentary elections and even the presidential election later on this year?
It's possible. It's very difficult to predict this. Right now, Egypt is politically polarized in a way that it has never been certainly in my memory, and probably for decades before that. People within the same families are calling each other traitors and not speaking to each other and denouncing each other publicly and so on. This sort of thing has never happened before. So if there would be a larger turnout for, say, parliamentary elections, what would be required is that the current government make some meaningful steps towards reconciliation and reintegrating at least the followers, if not the actual Muslim Brothers organization, into Egyptian political life. They have shown no indication whatsoever that they are prepared to do that.
If the defense minister, El-Sisi, is as popular as you say, and he does end up becoming president, do you anticipate Egypt will revert back to the pre-Morsi days, of the Mubarak days, rather?
That's already happened. There has been, for all intents and purposes, a restoration of the old regime. A few of the leading figureheads, like President Mubarak's son Gamal and Ahmed Ez, who was one of the leaders of the National Democratic Party, are still due to come up on charges of corruption of various sorts. But many of the people who fled the country, many of the people who were put on trial have either been acquitted or have been allowed to come back. Many of the same business people who are knee-deep in corruption, if not eyeball-deep in corruption, are back on the scene. The police are arresting journalists, demonstrators, opposition figures, Muslim Brotherhood leaders, just the way they were before. People are being tortured in detention at perhaps even a higher rate than they were before. So in all meaningful ways, pretty much the same degree of repression of political opposition is in place as was the case previously.
All right, Professor Joel Beinin from Stanford University, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you for having me.